ever experienced waking up in the middle of the night, suddenly asking yourself, what the hell am I doing with my life? Did you ask yourself, have I succumbed to this 8 to 5 soul-numbing existence of doing the same thing over and over, day in and day out, wherein I live to work instead of the other way around? You see, this line of existential questioning sounds very familiar to many entrepreneurs, especially to accidental ones like myself. Sometimes it doesn't come like a sudden jolt, but rather a niggling thought in the back of your head, a growing dissatisfaction from your gut. I was heavily pregnant and was in my second trimester when I took on a GM role at an advertising agency. And I still remember walking up and down 2 flights of stairs, like an overstuffed penguin with my huge belly for 5 months. And before I knew it, my son Maui was almost 2. 2 years had gone by in a blur, just like that. I hardly saw my family and I thought, this has got to change. And so, I finished my 2-year GM contract and I started a business. There I was, March 8, 2014, and International Women's Day, mind you, and that was not a coincidence. I was a solo Fiji fempreneur with 2 clients and a mobile business license from the Sinu City Council. I worked in the second bedroom next to my son's old crib, and I graduated to a bigger spot in the living room. I met my clients in coffee shops, and I memorized all the places and tables near good PowerPoints so I could work from there. And so while I was busy with all of these projects that were coming from 2 clients, I talked to other entrepreneurs. I joined business community groups. I watched a lot of YouTube and TED Talks and read all that I can about business because I studied communications in school. What do I know about business? So I lapped them up. Good to Great, Steve Jobs, the lean startup, take the lead, you name it. And, whatever lessons I have learned in all these books and all the advice that mentors and advisors gave to this entrepreneur by accident, well, it taught me that starting a business, starting and thriving in business, as well as in life, requires a lot of courage, but especially in 3 things. Courage to be different. So in business, you keep getting asked, what makes you different? Why should I work with you or buy from you? In life, I struggled when I was younger because I was different. When I was 10, my father uprooted our whole family from the Philippines, where I was born, and took us to Nauru because he got a job at Nauru Phosphate Corporation. And I still remember walking in my first day at Iowa Primary School, the only bespectacled kid wearing bright bleached white sneakers and a freshly ironed checkered green uniform. Not one kid wore these white shoes. They were either barefoot or wore flip-flops, and no one wore glasses, especially not bubblegum pink-colored ones that your mother thought was cool. And so, as you can imagine, in Nauru, kids are taught to be different, and as you can imagine, I looked different and also sounded very different. I had and still have a thick Filipino accent, so yes, I got picked on a lot. And then, when I went back to the Philippines many years later to attend a university that was really expensive and prestigious, called De La Salle University, my parents were adamant that I was going to receive my education from there, even if we could hardly afford it. Many students were so affluent, they even had their own drivers and their own penthouse apartments. I couldn't even afford music CDs. So it was really hard. But eventually, the struggle of being different changed to a celebration of being one. My mother used to say, sometimes you can't fight it. You just have to ride it like a wave. So in Nauru, I became friends with some really cool but tough girls who loyally defended me against bullies. As you can see, white shoes. And at university, I met my people, other kindred spirits who were not part of the elites. But these motley crew of individuals and lifelong friends were so crucial to my fun and meaningful university experience. So I eventually embraced nerdhood and gradually became very comfortable in my own skin. And when I started the greenhouse studio, I was ready to be different. I'd mention the things that we did, and someone would say, oh, but that's too expensive, not affordable, and not best practice for small businesses. And I'd say, how can we not? Our company mantra is we inspire change. So how can we expect our people to inspire change around them if we do not create a culture or an environment that supports this? Within a year, we had grown from 1 to 3 people, and we're hiring more. But instead of paying for an expensive and glamorous office in Suva, we opted to stay in the second bedroom of the little flat that my family was renting. We thought, our thinking was, instead of paying for these ridiculous rent prices, we might as well pay our staff well, and we should. I envisioned a culture where work-life integration is the norm. Your workers and your staff will need to go and pick up their kids at school. Sometimes they need to bring their children to the office. Go to classes, buy some groceries, attend to a personal matter. Whatever it is, at Greenhouse, we work together to achieve certain results. And if those are done within 4 hours instead of 8, that's great. From the beginning, we had a results-only work environment, so we gave everyone laptops. So our staff is free to work anywhere that they choose. They're not policed on how many hours they worked on a project or where, or whether they came in or left early. And so, at Greenhouse, there are a lot of things that we did different. And, other things that we did different are being a for-purpose company. I always mentioned this to others and they didn't know what it was. And I said, you know what? Adam Braun explains it very well. A for-purpose company blends the head of a for-profit business with the heart of a humanitarian nonprofit. So as a team, we choose to work only with clients that have values similar to ours. And again, somebody said, that's crazy. How can you, as a small business, afford to even choose clients? And you know what? But we have. And I am so proud of our team. I believe because of our courage to be and stay different, that we have grown so much in the last 5 years. From 1 to 7 people, from 2 to over 30 clients, from Fiji, from Samoa, Solomon Islands, Australia, and even Dubai, Belgium, and the UK. From the beginning, we focused on cultivating relationships, which brings us to the second thing, the courage to be kind. At the core of our belief system is the philosophy that if we nourish strong and honest relationships with our clients, our team, and our own selves, profit and recognition will follow. And when we talk about relationships, the words that get thrown around a lot are communication, respect, trust. What I realized is that people don't mention kindness enough. I believe that it is severely underrated in a world that gravely needs it. Growing up, I feel very grateful to have observed my parents treat everyone with kindness. And it showed in their choice of language, in their manner of speaking, like the way they spoke to or about someone, and in their actions too. They simply showed that they cared. They were also especially kind to each other. And I really believe that this is the secret sauce to my parents' 30 plus years of marriage. In their 60s, we used to tease them because they'd still hold hands and whisper like school kids in public. Research shows couples that last are those that continuously look for things that they can appreciate and say thank you for. They are intentionally kind to their partners. On the other hand, couples that don't last are the ones that are always scanning for things that their partner is doing right or wrong and criticizing. But how can kindness be a core value in business? For many years, kindness has been associated with weakness. But more and more studies are proving this association wrong. And I think it's because just like kindness is the secret to lasting personal relationships, it's the same for lasting business relationships. To me, the logic is simple. Why not be kind when you want to be treated that way as well, right? The golden rule. It is the same principle that we worked from when we instituted a 3-month paternity leave in all of our staff contracts. We have 3-month paternity leaves, why not? 3-month maternity leaves, why not paternity leaves too? This was recently used by one of our designers, Tom, who recently became a proud father of 2. Now, our team worked so hard during the whole year that we closed the office for a 3-week paid leave from December to January. A perk of being a senior or a manager at Greenhouse means we send you to another country for at least 2 weeks so you can learn new things, get creative ideas, or attend a course in a foreign country. Just this year, our MD Karen went to Australia, 4 cities in Australia, for a self-care trip funded by Greenhouse. And come January, 2 members of our staff, Josh and Miri, are flying to Japan for a 2-week adventure. Last year, we flew Josh outside of Fiji for the very first time in his life. Growing up, money was difficult, so traveling overseas was a challenge. We enrolled him in a UX course in Wellington, and he also got to see his grandparents who lived in Auckland, and he had not seen them for a very long time. So this is Josh and Grandpa doing a road trip from Auckland to Wellington so that he can attend his course, as you do. For us, these are just some of the examples that kindness can be an integral part of any business. At Greenhouse, when you get hired, the first thing we ask you is, what are your dreams and your ambition? Karen really wanted to graduate in her marketing diploma. And so, within a year of joining, the company paid for her course and covered for the hours, even during work, so that she could study and graduate. So at Greenhouse, not only do we have the annual performance review, we also have something that we call the annual dream review. Now, the last point is perhaps the hardest because it is linked to feelings of shame and embarrassment. The courage to be wrong. If you are a TED fan like I am, then you must have already watched Dr. Brené Brown and her TED Talk on the power of vulnerability. She calls people who welcome vulnerability the wholehearted. People who are not afraid to invest in relationships that may or may not work, or are willing to try things that do not have any guarantees. And I said, wait a minute, is she talking about entrepreneurs? Because when you start a small business, you are definitely vulnerable. You start hiring people, and all of a sudden, you are responsible for their bi-monthly pay and their well-being. You have to consistently show up for your clients, for your team, even if you do not feel like it. So in the face of uncertainty, risk, and failure, why do it at all? I believe this is simply because if you have an idea that will change people's lives and solve problems, the risk of not starting and trying is greater than the risk of being wrong and failing. And for Greenhouse, yes, definitely, we've made mistakes over the years. We've lost some clients and partners. We've made some wrong decisions. We've provided services that we didn't nail, tried asking for funding and got rejected. But we say, this is okay. We keep trying and pushing our boundaries. And when we are wrong, we do our best that we can to learn from it. We keep putting ourselves out there because we know when we're too comfortable, something is wrong. And I'm so excited to share that just at the beginning of this month, the Greenhouse Studio has finally taken a leap and moved out of the second bedroom of the little flat of our family and has moved to a much bigger space so that we can open Greenhouse Co-working early next year. It is a creative and co-working hub that aims to incubate, support, and launch social startups and local entrepreneurs. 3 years ago, I also managed to convince my husband to buy a piece of land in Pacific Harbor with me so that we can build Greenhouse Villa, a place for digital nomads to collaborate with Fiji-based entrepreneurs. A place for workations, a place for company retreats. After a long list of obstacles and frustrating delays, we finally found a bank who is willing to help us make this dream come true. Both are not very big spaces for now, but it's a start. At Greenhouse, we want to inspire, any change in all the ways we know how. And we want to inspire other people to do the same, to look at problems in Fiji and the Pacific and to solve them through creativity and collaboration. We keep getting outside of our comfort zones because we know this to be true. Magic happens outside of our comfort zones. And me, speaking in front of you today is the perfect example of stepping out of that proverbial comfort zone, letting my guts out for the live streaming, watching world to see. My talk immortalized in the digital world for eternity. And someone said, surely you're so used to talking to people, by now in front of people. And I said, while my stomach was in knots and wide-eyed after watching innumerable TED Talk playlists all night in preparation for this talk, you all have no idea how many times I imagined myself like Oprah or did these Amy Cuddy poses backstage before I walked out on here. But seriously, whenever I feel absolutely terrified that something might go wrong, I think about my father. Over 9 years ago, he was diagnosed with stage 4B Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's a rare type of aggressive cancer. So for 2 weeks, the hospital was our home. My mother, my brother, my husband, and I slept in the hospital room on inflatable mattresses that we bought from Mega Mall. And you'll know this place if you're from the Philippines. We took turns talking to him, taking care of him, and soothing him because he was in so much pain. As a daddy's girl, it was extremely excruciating for me to see him like that. A few days before he passed, we were praying over him. And I said, God, please, could you just divide this pain that my tata is feeling amongst us, because this is what you do for people that you love. At that time, my father, my tata, was no longer intubated, but he somehow had lost his ability to speak. And so, after finishing the prayer, he held my hand, he tugged it, and he put it close to his heart, and he motioned back to me as if to say, I love you. He did the same for everyone in the circle that day. And at that very moment, I realized my father taught me that in the end, really, the only thing that matters in this life is love. To love and be loved in return. I remember this lesson more now because when I've had some really hard days doing business or at work, I come home to sloppy kisses from my baby girl and the biggest hugs from my son and my husband blow drying my hair because he does this so that I don't get sick, as I do when I sleep with wet hair. On days that I can't seem to find the courage because I'm scared that I might be wrong or I might fail, I remember that in the end, it will not matter. I am surrounded by people that I love and people that love me back. They give me courage. So, when things get really tough and the challenges are mounting on top of another, when your critics and your naysayers are louder than ever, and when in your heart of hearts you know you should try even if you're so afraid, I hope that you find the courage to be different, the courage to be kind, and the courage to be wrong. Pinaka pagkalebutan.